Hello, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, UNESCO reconsiders its controversial Temple Mount resolution. Israel and Turkey take major steps towards normalizing ties, and Israeli scientists may have just made a major breakthrough in treating Alzheimer's. I'm Natasha Kirchak here with the latest news in Israel. UNESCO's executive board has formally adopted a controversial resolution on Jerusalem, following the holding of a new vote this morning in Paris. The declaration fails to acknowledge a Jewish connection to the Temple Mount in the Old City of Jerusalem and refers to the compound exclusively by its Islamic name. The UN Cultural Agency approved the resolution despite demonstrations from Israel and Jews around the world.
לישראל אין קשר להר הבית ולכותל, זה כמו לומר שלסין אין קשר לחומה הסינית, ולומר שלמצרים אין קשר לפירמידות. בהחלטה האבסורדית הזאת, אונסקו איבד את מעט הלגיטימיות שנשארה לו, אבל אני מאמין שהאמת ההיסטורית יותר חזקה, והאמת תנצח.
Israel's UNESCO envoy has expressed outrage over the development.
We will not negotiate and we won't take a part in this ugly game. This game, there is no place for those games here in UNESCO. This noble organization was established to, to preserve the history, not to rewrite it. And the Palestinians and the Arab countries want to rewrite the history of Jerusalem. And we don't need any approval. Not from the Palestinians, with all due respect, and even not from the executive board. The history link between the Jewish people and Jerusalem is so strong that nobody on earth can break it.
As Russia deepens its military involvement in the Syrian civil war, Israel has been careful to coordinate airspace logistics to make sure there won't be any accidental crossfire. Now, new developments have caused this cooperation to become even more critical. Israeli army officials are calling on the Russian Defense Ministry to hold another round of discussions on coordinating procedures and open fire rules, after Moscow deployed S-300 anti-aircraft missiles to Syria, which is just over Israel's northern border. The initial agreement on these matters was set during a meeting between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Putin late last year. But the need for an updated joint mechanism has become necessary after Moscow reportedly shipped the sophisticated weapons to its naval facility in the Syrian city of Tartus earlier this month. The system is able to intercept ballistic missiles or shoot down aircraft.
Данный комплекс предназначен для обеспечения безопасности военно-морской базы в Тартусе и находящихся в прибрежной зоне кораблей оперативного соединения военно-морского флота России с воздуха. Не совсем понятно, почему размещение С-300 вызвало такой переполох у наших западных коллег.
The development could have wider implications, though. An expert on Russian-Israeli relations told the local Haaretz newspaper that it appears likely the Kremlin's reinforcement of Russian forces in Syria and stationing of the S-300s in particular is part of a Russian battle against the United States and not against Israel.
Что С-300 – это исключительно оборонительная система и никому не представляет никакой угрозы. Более того, ранее, как вам известно, в регионе находилась аналогичная система в морском исполнении комплекс «Форд», которым оснащен гвардейский ракетный крейсер Черноморского флота «Москва».
Hundreds of innocent people have been killed in Aleppo, Syria, as Russian and Syrian airstrikes continue in the rebel-held town. Now, many are describing the bombardment as genocide, including Jerusalem Post columnist Amos Asael, who sat down with ILTV's Steve Leibowitz to talk about Russia's goal to restore its position as a leading player in the Middle East.
I'm afraid that by any dictionary definition, when you deliberately and indiscriminately bombard with such firepower a densely inhabited metropolis. Aleppo, we should understand, was before the war, at least at some points, Greater Aleppo populated 4 million people. It's not an anecdote. And while today there are much fewer people there, both because of flight and because of previous casualties, nevertheless, the scale of the bombings, the intention with which it all is being done, I'm afraid it passes for the dictionary definition of genocide.
What is Russia's greater interest here? Obviously, they want to keep Assad in power, but is this extent of killing accomplishing that goal?
I think that the Russian grander aim is very clear, and they began making it plain a year ago when they positioned their air force through much engineering, actual construction. They positioned their air force on Syrian soil, in addition to the navy that had been there for decades since Father Assad the Elder. Now, last year, they brought in the air force and stationed it there, and then quickly afterwards used it in order to get involved and actually interfere directly in the civil war. And the aim in all this, to answer your question, was to restore Russia's status as a superpower, as a power broker that is relevant anywhere in the world and can be ignored by no one. This they accomplished. They accomplished this a year ago, especially against the backdrop of the American passivity that had been displayed 2 years earlier when America failed to deliver on its own vow to attack Assad's army in case it uses chemical weapons. It used chemical weapons. America did not respond. Russia detected the weakness and then acted on it in order to restore its position as a superpower. At the same time, they have an aim of keeping the Assad regime alive, which they have also accomplished because in their interference they tipped the scale in the war in his favor. Until then he was losing. But now they came to a new aim which I think is much more problematic and they will not be successful at. This aim is to retrieve from the jaws of this war the pre-war Syria over which both Assad the father and Assad the son once presided. That Syria, I think, is gone in order to never return. They will not be able to repiece it as an integral political entity.
Once upon a time, it would have caused great alarm in Israel if there were the kind of presence that you're talking about, air presence of the Russian Air Force in Syria, just north of our border. These days, Netanyahu travels to Moscow to meet Putin more than he does to Washington to meet with President Obama, and there seems to be a very friendly relationship, relatively speaking. Is there alarm in Israel over this new Russian presence?
Well, I would say that there is caution and suspicion, but what is emerging unwittingly out of the 5 years of proliferating civil wars around us, what is emerging very improbably and unwittingly is an ideology and a strategy of neutrality. Israel is emerging, at least for now, as the Finland of the Middle East. When I say Finland, I mean how Finland emerged for World War II, when on the one hand, it had been at war with the Soviet Union, and on the other hand, in every cultural and economic respect, it was part of the West, and therefore it pursued a policy of neutrality which held throughout the Cold War. Only after the Cold War could they allow themselves to fully join the West, and now they're even in the European Union. But during the Cold War, this is where they were, and there is some of that unfolding here in terms of our position vis-a-vis the Middle East and Russia.
Amos Asel, thanks so much for being with us at ILTV.
Thank you, Steve.
While much of the Middle East continues to descend into chaos and war, there's one bright spot on the horizon. Israel and Turkey are finally beginning to mend diplomatic ties. The announcement that Jerusalem and Ankara agreed to normalize relations came in June, and it's now becoming an actuality. Israeli Energy Minister Yuval Steinitz flew to Istanbul for talks with his Turkish counterpart Berat al-Bayrak, with resounding results on reopening government channels and even a major joint initiative.
What we decided is to establish immediately a dialogue between our two governments, between our two departments of energy, in order to examine the possibility and the feasibility of such a project that will enable us to bring natural gas from the Israeli economic water into Turkey and through Turkey to Europe. Also, we'll be glad to see Turkish companies involved in the Israeli energy sector. Actually, many of them are already involved, and if they will be involved in the exploration of future gas fields, they of course will be very welcome.
This was a first visit to Turkey by a senior official from the Jewish state in 6 years. Relations ruptured back in 2010 when 10 pro-Palestinian activists were killed after they attacked Israeli commandos who were trying to stop their ship from breaching the naval blockade of the Gaza Strip. Israel's energy minister welcomed the reinstatement of the regional alliance as a positive development for both nations and their people.
I am very happy to be here today. I was a great proponent of the normalization normalization of ties and diplomatic relations between Israel and Turkey, and the meeting today is the beginning of the result. It should be also economic results for the benefits of both people, for the benefit of both Turkey and Israel, and I believe that this is forthcoming.
Following an agreement on deepening cooperation in the energy sector, Ankara has now agreed to officially acknowledge the reconciliation, with the return of ambassadors to one another's soil.
Ama o süreç tamamlandı diyebilirim. Dışişleri Bakanlığımız konuyla ilgili zaten vakti geldiğinde gerekli açıklamayı yapacaktır. Zannediyorum bir hafta 10 gün içerisinde büyükelçilerin karşılıklı olarak atanması süreci de tamamlanmış olacak.
Speaking from Tel Aviv, ILTV extends our greetings, or as they say in Turkish, selam nash. The Stuxnet virus is making headlines again. The covert computer attack sabotaged a lot of Iran's nuclear program back in 2010, and many credited both Israel and the United States with creating the virus. Well, now a retired U.S. Marine general is in trouble for having revealed classified information about the attack and then lying to the FBI about it. Retired U.S. Marine Corps General James Cartwright has entered a guilty plea at a federal court in Washington for having lied to the FBI about revealing classified information to 2 journalists. One was New York Times reporter David Sanger, who wrote a book about the cyber attack that included top-secret information. Cartwright still insists he wasn't the source of the leak, but admits to having made statements in an effort to do some damage control to prevent publication of the material. Cartwright last served as vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and was considered to be one of President Barack Obama's favorite generals. He will be sentenced on January 17th, but some of the ruling is expected to be closed because of discussion of classified information. The Stuxnet worm was so effective that it's believed to have destroyed at least 1,000 of Iran's uranium-enriching centrifuges. Neither the US nor Israel ever publicly admitted responsibility for having designed the sophisticated virus. Have you ever wished you could speak directly to the people behind your favorite brands and get your questions answered on the spot? It turns out now you can, because a new American-Israeli platform called LivePerson is on a mission to make it easier for you to connect with the businesses you love. Joining us now in the studio from the company is Gali Konki and Lida Tabibian. Thanks so much for coming in. All right, so to begin, what is LivePerson?
So LivePerson is a company with a mission to create meaningful connections, and that's the core of our being throughout the entire company. And it reflects in our product, like you said. We want to create meaningful connections between brands and consumers. We all know that we've called 800 numbers and had really frustrating experiences, being put on hold and having to wait and then transferred around. So we really want to change that. We're here to create a really positive experience between brands and consumers. And how do we do that? We allow consumers to communicate with brands the same way that they do with friends and family. That's through messaging, through text messaging, sending images, video, voice calls, anything that you like, and really change that momentum. And for brands, it's really great because they don't only enjoy happier customers, but they see bigger revenues, bigger profits, and they also save a lot of money on their operations and the service and efficiency.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, everything's changing nowadays with texting. More people prefer sending messages and calling, and I'm kind of more old school. I prefer to generally, call the businesses that I'm interested in speaking to on the phone. Are you guys having any complications with that? Are there still people who prefer to stick to voice calls?
Okay, so we believe that consumers prefer to do messaging, okay? Especially when they're doing through their mobile device. This is the way to communicate. And especially when we are talking about the new generation, they use to message. They are using messaging app. Although I'm saying that, our messaging platform enable also voice calls and even live streaming video. So in case you prefer to do a voice call or in case you need a video chat, it's also possible through our messaging platform, and it's much more effective.
It's interesting, but the statistics show that people prefer to send messages. So how did you guys come up with the idea for this platform? I understand that it's kind of Israeli-American cooperation.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting story. LivePerson started as a startup in Israel, and it got purchased by an American company. We're now 20 years old, and we're traded on NASDAQ as well as the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. We're dually traded. We've been for 20 years working with some of the largest enterprises around the world. Our customers are the biggest banks, the biggest telcos, the biggest retailers all through the world. And what we wanted to do is we actually made kind of a bold move very recently, and we've completely recreated our platform from scratch. And the reason we did that is to really better cater to our customers. We wanted to, because of our technology hub is here in Israel, and we have access and brains to all of the latest and greatest technologies. We wanted to bring all of those latest technologies into our product, and we wanted to create more dynamic flexibility for innovation. So our large customers have extremely complex deployments, which they could do really easily now. We also wanted to make it open with APIs and for developments and innovations at any given time. And we're really happy to say that it's worked. So we have new customers coming onto the platform every day. They're really happy. And more importantly, some of our existing customers that came from the existing platform to the new platform, they see more sales, they see happier customers, and they see a lot of cost savings. So we're really happy with it.
Now, you guys were also voted as one of the best places to work in New York City. I know you guys are based in the office here in Israel, but what is the secret behind, you guys getting this big award?
It's really about the culture. So at LivePerson, we really, really believe in the culture. So meaningful connection drives us, but we also have a culture of help others and be an owner. That culture is throughout the entire company, the way that we sit in open space. Everything is dynamic, everything is open, everyone's approachable, everyone is really encouraged to be an owner and be an entrepreneur within LivePerson. So if you have an idea, you can get it done. And it's really an atmosphere of innovation, of taking ownership and really togetherness. So it creates
kind of Israeli startup culture.
Yeah.
So finally, what is the future of LivePerson? Where do you guys see the platform headed?
Okay, the product house in Israel is currently working on enhancing our messaging solution. I will give you a few examples. One of them, developing a framework for chatbots. Chatbots is a very innovative thing now in the market, okay? We are basing it on an AI platform and technology. Another example, we're opening the platform. We're opening the platform for partners to innovate on top of our solution. One example for that, consumer connectors. Today we have a built-in connectors for Facebook, SMS, and we encourage the partner to develop additional connector for additional messaging app. Another example, we are changing the way to think about measurement and customer satisfaction. We came with the MCS. MCS is a meaningful connection score. It's based on text analytics, on big data, and it's instead of the annoying customer survey. We're trying to innovate in all the areas of digital lifestyle.
Beautiful. Well, it looks like you guys are really changing the game with this platform, and I'm excited to see how things are going and have to start learning how to message businesses instead of calling them. But thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Have you ever wanted to become an archaeologist and find out more about the amazing history of the land of Israel? If so, you might just need to make plans to stop by a special new open house educational center that's now being built in Jerusalem.
The center is called the J. and Jeannie Schottenstein National Campus for the Archaeology of Israel. This facility is going to shine a spotlight on Israel's heritage like never before by taking visitors on a gigantic leap back in time. Everyone will be able to see treasures that until now were hidden away in storage rooms.
It's a unique building. Only one building like this in the world, because this building is not like other archaeological museums. We will show how we preserve archaeology, how we deal with archaeology, explore archaeology and publish it, and then exhibit everything to the public. So we will put together all the archaeological element and preservation element under one shelter.
One of the world's most prominent architects designed the campus, which truly embodies the rich spirit of the Israeli capital.
Building is an assemblage of outdoor and indoor spaces. It is built with Jerusalem stone. It is a contemporary building, yet it tries to relate to the heritage of Jerusalem. It is a quintessential Jerusalem building, but really with a contemporary spirit. Its great tent will hover over the site.
Another exciting feature is the opportunity to get your own first-hand glimpse of the fascinating process of archaeological preservation that most people never get to see.
Everyone will be able to come here to learn, to see, because we do believe that that's our national treasure. The national treasure of Israel is our archaeology, our heritage. Among other things that we'll expose here, there will be all our laboratories, because we wanted people to see how we are working in the laboratory, how we treat ceramics, metal, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and other items that we are finding in excavations.
And unlike most museums, you're not just going to be walking around staring at a lot of old stuff stuck in a bunch of dusty display cases.
Also, we will show the new items that just found in archaeological excavation, just found and not published. After 1 or 2 days, they will be exhibited here. We want the people to feel what's the meaning of archaeology, what is to be an archaeologist, what is the meaning of being a preservator, how we are doing it, to be together, to be involved in all over the process of the research. That's the main issue of this building.
The $105 million cost of the museum is being covered by the State of Israel, as well as 26 donors. They'll all be attending the inauguration ceremony on October 19th, alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. You can also watch it being live streamed on the Israeli Antiquities Authority's Facebook page. And as for stopping by, well, we're all going to have to wait until the entire project's been completed in about a year's time.
Anyone who has a loved one suffering from Alzheimer's knows how heartbreaking the disease is. But now Israel is providing new hope that an improved treatment could be within reach.
Researchers at the Tel Aviv University say they've been able to actually change the unhealthy nature of a gene associated with a neurodegenerative disease to a positive form. They say they've been successful at converting the gene called APOE4 to a good status of APOE3, with a brand new mechanism they've developed. About 60% of patients afflicted with Alzheimer's have been shown to have the bad APOE4 in their genetic makeups. Mice which have undergone treatment by the Israeli University are already exhibiting far less disoriented behavior. The lead researcher says the gene has been understudied in the past, and knowing more about it may one day actually contribute to a cure for the dreadful disease.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. With great power comes the great need to take a nap. So today's word is shnatz, which means nap in Hebrew. Shnatz is a combination of the two words shenat, sleep, and tzoraim, afternoon. Now, while the afternoon siesta is pretty popular throughout the Mediterranean, here in Israel, it's a lot less common. But that doesn't mean naps aren't popular. Life can get pretty crazy in the Middle East, and Israelis understand the importance of a shnatz. It's kind of like taking a horizontal life pause. Sleep is essential to your well-being, so if you're having a rough day, just take a shnatz. You'll wake up fresh and ready to take on another day in the Holy Land. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast.
ILTV's weather forecast is sponsored by Adopt a Savta, taking care of Israel's lonely Holocaust survivors.
Wednesday is expected to be partly cloudy with a high of 80 degrees. The sun will come back out by Thursday with the temperature going up to 81. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.83 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to check out our next update at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and see you tonight.